Crimson Rivers, the bridge. Regulus can see why the others have survived in this cave. It's very hard to find, and even with how observant he is, he doesn't spot it until James actually points it out. There's some foliage put in front of the entrance to disguise it further, which James informs him is new. As soon as they enter, Vanity is scrambling to her feet and shrieking, "James, you're here! You're back!" Regulus watches her launch herself forward to hug him, which he takes with a laugh as he hugs her back. They actually look like they're squeezing each other tight enough to hurt, but neither of them seem to mind. Vanity is comically shorter and smaller than James, but he pretends like she's about to knock him over, teasing her about being so strong. From the side, where he's boiling water, Peter watches with a soft smile. Irene and Matthias also share fond chuckles, but they're handling food at the moment, or what will be food, so he doesn't look at them very much. He's seen enough blood and death to last him a lifetime at this point. "What's this? This is new," James says, reaching up to gently run his hand over the artfully twisted hair on top of Vanity's head. "Matthias did it for me." Vanity beams up at him. "It looks nice like this." "Yes, very pretty," James tells her, with what Regulus knows is genuine sincerity. "I was really worried about you," Vanity declares, then hits him on the arm. "I thought you weren't coming back." James rubs his arm with a wince. "No, I was. I promise I was. I just had to, He glances over at Regulus, then clears his throat and gives Vanity a lopsided smile. "Well, I had to find him and bring him back with me. Got a little sidetracked." "Oh, right, Regulus," Vanity sing-songs, giving James a teasing look that makes him snort. She pokes him in the stomach, her eyes bright with laughter, and something about it, her youth and how sweet she is, makes Regulus ease up and calm down a bit, leaving him just slightly less on edge. "You had to get your boyfriend." Lovely. Even here, Regulus can't escape that assumption. At least no one is calling him Loverboy, though, at the thought, he feels his heart sink. Only one person ever called him that. He would walk around with that moniker printed on his forehead if it meant Evan was still alive to say it. "Hey, Regulus," Matthias calls eagerly, hopping to their feet to amble over with hope in their eyes. "Can I steal a dagger? Wait, that came out wrong. I'm skinning the squirrel, and that's really difficult to do without anything sharp. I have chipped stones, but a dagger would make it so much easier, and it would be less messy, so if I could borrow a dagger, that's what I meant, borrow, not steal, obviously, because I will absolutely give it back." "No," Regulus says, and Matthias snaps their mouth shut, their eyes wide. An uncomfortable silence settles in the cave, and Regulus sighs. "I'll just help." Matthias brightens instantly. "Brilliant. Come on, then. Irene is so good at it, but I absolutely hate this part. It actually puts me off eating, really, but also I don't want to starve, so..." Reluctantly, Regulus trails over to the side of the cave where Matthias leads him, and Irene is already hard at work. He shoots James a narrow-eyed glare as he goes past, but James just grins at him. He mouths, "Be nice," and Regulus flips him off, which makes James stifle a laugh before he focuses back on Vanity, eventually moving over to chat with Peter as well. "Brought reinforcements, have you?" Irene asks with a grunt as Matthias and Regulus crouch down next to her. "He has a dagger he's willing to help us. He's willing to use to help." Matthias says cheerfully. Irene snorts. "Least he could do if he's showing up to eat with us." She raises her eyebrows when he scowls at her. "Don't look like that. You want food? Earn it." "Looks to me like you have 2 daggers." She holds out her hand and holds his gaze without wavering. "No use in not letting someone else use the other one. The sooner we get this done, the sooner we eat." "I'd rather starve," Regulus says stiffly. "Prick," Irene declares bluntly. Matthias coughs. "Okay, let's just get this done, yeah? You don't have to give up one of your weapons, Regulus, that's fine. We get it. I don't think I'd be eager to do that either. Thanks for helping, though. We appreciate it, don't we, Irene?" Irene remains silent. Clearly, she doesn't appreciate it. They all dip into silence for a bit, though Regulus does help with his own dagger. because he's willing to do that at the very least. Eventually, the silence is broken. Can I ask how you actually got them, though? Matthias asks, glancing at him curiously. The daggers, I mean. We know the river ices over at night, but the Death Eaters are always there, and you had them by the second day. If there's a way over, there's not, Regulus murmurs, focusing on his hands and what they were doing. Well, not a way that works, not really. I climbed over with... He halts, his voice catching, and then he forces himself to keep going because Irene and Matthias both stop to stare at him, obviously picking up on the emotion in his voice. He clears it away by clearing his throat. Rosaire and I climbed the tree and used one of the limbs over the river to swing across. It was risky, but we managed it. Except it didn't work so well on swinging our way back across. The branch broke, and I got stuck on the other side. Don't recommend it. Noted, Matthias mumbles. And the spider? Irene says, a shudder rippling through her body. Not a fan of spiders, clearly, and Regulus can safely say he's not either after that. How the fuck did you manage to survive that thing? Regulus sighs. I let it chase me to the river, then tricked it into falling in. Oh, that's brilliant, Matthias says, gaping at him in disbelief, eyes wide with pure wonder. That thing was terrifying. I've had nightmares about it literally every night, Irene grumbles, her face twisting, and she squirms a little bit before making a frustrated noise and dropping what's in her hand to frantically pat up and down her own arms. Matthias leans over and whispers, she's terrified of spiders. Yeah, I got that, Regulus replies. Shut up, Matthias, you're scared of the dark. Irene snaps, and Matthias begins shuddering immediately. Regulus falls silent, listening to them bicker, strangely soothed by the sound. It reminds him of, well, Sirius and himself, honestly, back when they were younger and they'd get into arguments over the smallest things. They used to fight like cats and dogs, and Regulus finds himself missing it, oddly enough. Clearly, Irene and Matthias have that same sort of dynamic, and Matthias effortlessly falls into the younger sibling role because they are younger, while Irene fits right into the older sibling role with ease. Over in the corner, James is still with Peter and Vanity, which Regulus accidentally keeps an eye on. He doesn't mean to, if he's honest, but his eyes keep flickering over to them, watching James laugh and look more relaxed than he has in days. He's always shined in social situations, always the type of person to feed off the energy around him rather than being drained by it. Regulus is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum in that regard, and he always has been. There's genuinely nothing more exhausting than a group of people, in his opinion. Hey, can you help me strip this, since you won't give up your dagger? Irene asks, drawing his attention again. Fine, Regulus murmurs with no heat to his tone, because there wasn't any in hers. He may not like her, but he has no interest in provoking her. He helps her without a word. James comes over at one point to crouch down behind him and start digging around in the bag, saying, I'm taking the water canister to fill it up. That way we can all share instead of repeatedly boiling water over and over. Clears up the fire to use for food, too. Regulus doesn't respond, but he doesn't protest, and when James leaves, Irene mutters, Oh, so he's welcome to borrow your things. He glares at her, and she flashes him a broad smile. Can't say I blame you, Regulus. I'd let him take whatever he wanted from me, too. Irene, Matthias says with a sigh. What? Irene says, laughing. I would. Matthias rolls their eyes, then gives Regulus a playful smile as they shake their head. Please don't kill her in her sleep. I know she doesn't make it obvious, but she's actually a good person. They burst out laughing while Irene immediately swats them over the head. Oi, watch the hair. If you get blood in my hair, Irene, I swear I'll... What? What, Matthias, Irene cackles and proceeds to dive forward with both hands outstretched, trying to press her fingers into Matthias's hair while they yelp and scramble backward, laughing along with her. It sort of feels like stepping into an entirely different world, one he wouldn't have felt out of place in only a few days ago, at least not the way he does now, where the sight of blood doesn't make him picture Avery's gushing throat, or Evan's blood-stained fingers, or Mulciber's chest split open. where loud shrieks don't make him tense up instinctively, thinking of the scream James released when he was caught in the bear trap, or the sound of Mulciber screeching when Regulus chopped his hand off. Where a joke about murder is just a joke, and not a very real possibility that Regulus has to just live with. Irene and Matthias do eventually stop playing around, and they finish up with Regulus's help, so the food is ready to cook. The three of them go over to join the other three. Vanity is telling James how she managed to keep from freezing to death every night as the smallest person in the cave. Not just the help from the fire, or even the body heat from Irene and Matthias crowding her, but she apparently found the colony of fiendfire ants. They're hallow-made and quite deadly if you get bit by too many of them, apparently, but she discovered some in the forest and managed to capture them, which she crushed up and boiled into water, then took sips of throughout the night in very small, concentrated amounts to raise her core temperature. It has made her vomit and given her a rash, which she excitedly shows James by rolling up her sleeves, but it's what keeps her alive. She's absolutely fascinated by the ants, of course, and James tries to hide his horror for what she's resorted to, but Regulus can see it anyway. Even Peter, Irene, and Matthias, who are all aware of this already, seem uncomfortable about the whole ordeal. Regulus thinks that it's smart on an intellectual level, but on a human level, it's fucking awful. She's 15. She should not have to risk drinking lethal ant juice just so she won't freeze to death. "We have a blanket," Regulus announces rather abruptly, completely interrupting Vanity mid-conversation. Everyone goes silent and stares at him. "You can use it." Vanity blinks at him. "But I have my ant juice." "You're using the blanket," Peter declares firmly, pointing at her and raising his eyebrows. "No more ant juice." "But, no." "Peter," Vanity mumbles, "it's so cool, though, the way the venom affects the—" Peter waves his hand through the air, looking exasperated. "No more ant juice. No more talking about ant juice. Regulus is kind enough to let you use the blanket, so you're going to use the blanket. James, tell her." "It's a very nice blanket," James confirms, his voice soft. When Regulus glances at him, James is looking right at him, a tender smile on his face that Regulus quickly looks away from, feeling awkward and undeserving as always. "It'll keep you warm enough to make it through the night." Vanity huffs. "But my ant juice was—" "No more ant juice," Peter, Irene, and Matthias all announce at the same time, which makes Vanity scowl. Peter huffs out a weak laugh and shakes his head. "It's the blanket from here on out, all right? Say thank you to Regulus." "I'm not 5, Vanity snaps. "Fuck off, I'll drink my ant juice if I want to drink my ant juice. At least until too much erodes your internal organs to the point that they begin to shut down one by one in a slow, agonizing death," Regulus says, and Vanity blinks at him again, her lips tipping down. "But sure, drink your ant juice if you want to. I'll keep my blanket." There's a long beat of silence. "No, I'll use a blanket," Vanity mumbles. "Thanks." Regulus just hums in vague affirmative and goes back to lazily flipping his dagger through his hands, entertaining himself with that rather than joining the conversation, save for that one moment. It takes a while for the talking to start back up again, but eventually it does. It's about midday, so they have quite a few more hours left in the day before it starts to get cold. The inside of the cave is obviously a sanctuary, and the others have made it as safe and comfortable as possible. They've put down padding from leaves and vines to sleep on, and they've stuck up leaves and mud to close any crack where wind can get in, also insulating the walls much the same way. Not the back portion of the wall where water trickles down, though. Regulus can begrudgingly admit that it's a good show of survival on their parts. They're safe, secluded, and as warm as they can get. The food from the traps today is apparently the most they've had so far. James has a bundle of berries in the bowl they got from Evan's bag, which he passes out and shares between everyone without hesitation. Regulus shakes his head when James offers him some, settling for his portion of the cooked meat, since it's more than enough. It strikes him, then, that he didn't stop to think of getting Evan's supplies off his body, or even picking up Quinn's spear. From a survival standpoint, it's a huge oversight and moment of stupidity, but again, from a human standpoint, the thought of actually doing that makes him uncomfortable. It's sort of nice to realize it, that their humanity hasn't escaped into the void the game seems so desperate to open up in all of them. So, Peter declares in the middle of the meal, I was thinking we head out after we've all finished up. Regulus, you've been across the river, Irene and Matthias said, so do they have food over there at all? And the supplies, no doubt, Regulus says. Mine came with dried meat and a granola bar. I haven't been back to take a proper look, but I'll bet the Death Eaters have all the food in one place for easy access. They also probably have what food their sponsor sent them. I would love something sweet right now, Matthias tells them with a wistful sigh. Like, I don't know, cake. Yes, James bursts out, utterly delighted. You read my mind, Matthias. I've been thinking about cake since last night. Sweet, sweet icing, Matthias says dreamily. Soft, fluffy cake. James agrees. It would be in layers, of course, Matthias continues, like at least 4 layers, and each layer is a different flavor, James finishes for them, then proceeds to let out a truly indecent moan. Oh, that sounds so good, I'm gonna fucking cry. Please, stop talking about cake, Vanity says mournfully, frowning at her meat. It's making me sad. Right, no more cake talk. I don't even like cake, and I want cake right now, Peter mumbles with a sigh. So, I vote we get weapons, then rob the Death Eaters of all their food. Everyone in favor? Irene declares, then puts her hand up. Matthias and Peter immediately join her, which prompts Vanity and James to do the same. They all look at Regulus, and he sighs. Sure, but how do you plan to do that exactly? The bridge, Matthias informs him. Regulus just stares at them. We've been building a bridge to get across the river. As soon as it touches the water, whatever is in that river is going to pull it under, Regulus says. Peter bobs his head. Yeah, we thought of that, so that's why we made a raised bridge. The ends of it go up like ramps. It's quite big, so it's outside, but 3 people can carry it. We can't go across at night because the Death Eaters are there, but we're barely surviving without supplies and weapons, Irene adds. They're away during the day, so it's our best option. And if they come across us on our way there, Regulus asks. Well, that's where you and James come in, Vanity says, and she smiles sweetly when Regulus arches an eyebrow at her. James pauses mid-bite, staring at her with wide eyes. You 2 have weapons, so obviously you 2 are the muscle. Such good muscle, too, Irene muses, grinning at James, who inhales his bite and proceeds to choke on it. Regulus rolls his eyes so hard that he nearly catches a glimpse of his own brain. We're joking, Vanity tells them with a wiggle. With a wiggle? With a giggle. Obviously, we thought of this. Actually, Peter thought of this. That I did, Peter confirms, reaching over to pound on James's back and offer him water. James takes it with a weak thumbs up. So the plan is to set a sequence of large fires to draw them away and keep them from the cave for long enough that everyone else can get in and out before they even knew we were there. Well, they'll find out, but we'll be long gone by then. Regulus narrows his eyes. Who's setting the fires? That would be me, Peter says, taking a deep breath. He grimaces slightly. It was my plan, so I should do it, I suppose. I've gone out with Irene to set them all up already, so all I have to do is light them and run. James looks at Regulus expectantly, and it's very fucking annoying that Regulus immediately knows what he wants. With a sigh, Regulus mutters, I have matches you can use. Only 6 left, so don't waste any. James beams at him. Oh, that will be helpful, thank you, Peter tells him with a broad grin. It'll give me more time to run, that's for sure. You know, Pete, James starts, if you don't want to— Shut up, James. Regulus cuts in, glaring at him, and James shuts up. He clearly isn't happy about it, but he does. Peter looks a bit disappointed, but he's not getting out of this. But he still says, No, it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine, James agrees, like he can make it so if he simply believes it enough. He should know that's not how it works by now. James has to admit, The bridge is a bit of engineering genius. Its long, thin branches weaved together and stacked on top of each other, with 2 ramps off the ends that will keep the wood raised above the water. Matthias did most of the work with help from the others, and it took them 2 days. The agreement they all came to whilst carting the bridge through the woods was that Regulus and James would rotate out on carrying the bridge with the others, so that one of them is ready with a weapon at all times, and the other 3 would rotate out whenever they got tired. James takes the first shift with Vanity and Irene, while Regulus and Matthias walk behind them, talking. Well, Matthias is doing most of the talking, but Regulus doesn't mind because he hasn't told them to shut up yet, and James knows he would if he did mind. Peter has already gone off to reach the first fire point, and James would be lying if he said he wasn't worried about him. His stomach is cramping with anxiety. He really had wanted to offer to go in his place, but Regulus was quite clear about not allowing that, and James gets why. He could practically hear Sirius screeching in his head. Don't you fucking dare, James. Take that hero complex I gave you and shove it. So James didn't push the matter for once. One of the main reasons, other than the fact that he feels compelled to listen to Sirius living in his head, and also the Regulus right in front of him, is that he doesn't fancy letting Regulus out of his sight. Come on, Vanity, take a break, Matthias says softly, keeping their voice low. It's really not that heavy, Vanity mumbles, but she dutifully lets go when Matthias comes up to take over. Speak for yourself, Irene complains. Regulus practically appears at James's shoulder. He doesn't even say anything. He just slides his daggers away and pokes at James's hand to indicate that he should let go. James's lips twitch against his will, and he's so helplessly fond. They swap places without a word, and James falls back with Vanity. I'm really upset about my aunt juice, Vanity tells him. James is also really upset about her aunt juice, but for an entirely different reason than her, so he keeps it to himself. Not that I'm not grateful for your boyfriend offering your little love blanket. I am. I'm grateful, but our little love blanket, James repeats, blinking rapidly. Vanity holds her hand up in surrender. Look, I'm not judging, all right? Just don't tell me the details so I don't have to think about it when I use it. Desperate times and all that. James stares at her in bewilderment. Vanity, there are no details. We use it to stay warm. Sure, James, Vanity says, her eyes bright with humor. Chuckling, James shakes his head. You're a menace. I think it's cute, really, Vanity muses thoughtfully, her lips curled up. You and Regulus, I mean. In a very opposites attract to borderline doesn't make sense, but somehow makes so much sense sort of way. Oh, and the best friend's brother secret history forbidden love way also. Thank you, James says. Vanity hums. I read a lot of romance novels. I'm still waiting for my prince to come save me, you know. Oh, is that so? James teases. Have anyone in mind? No, Vanity mumbles, but he can tell she's lying instantly because she ducks her head and kicks at the ground. James snorts. Yeah, you do. Go on. I won't tell anyone. Promise? I'll take it to my grave. He doesn't know, Vanity whispers, reaching up under her sleeve to scratch at her rash distractedly, chewing on her lip nervously. Well, you know, Hodge. Hodge? James asks, weakly, his heart sinking. The one who was reaped with you? That Hodge? Please don't let it be that Hodge, James thinks, but of course, Vanity sighs and says, yeah, that Hodge. We're friends, sort of. I mean, we're in some of the same classes because we're only a few months apart. He actually turns 15 tomorrow. Maybe Marlene can convince one of the sponsors to send him something, like a treat at least. Maybe, James says softly, his heart clenching. He doesn't know what else to say. But anyway, I get it, Vanity murmurs, gesturing between James and Regulus. Well, sort of, I mean, only a bit. We didn't grow up together or anything, but he was always nice to me in school when we did talk. I didn't really have a crush on him until we got here, though. He's just been really, really kind to me. He found me crying once and sat down to talk to me, and I know it's stupid, but I was thinking about how I've never even had my first kiss, and I probably never will. Then I thought it would have been nice if he was my first kiss, but that's never going to happen either. James swallows thickly, stricken by how utterly devastating that is. She's never even had her first kiss. Fuck. I'm sorry, Vanity. That's really awful. I'm so sorry. You've kissed people, right? Vanity asks. Yes, James admits. Vanity frowns at him. Am I missing anything? Absolutely nothing, James replies immediately, sending a mental apology to everyone he's ever kissed, especially Robbie. They were a brilliant kisser. If they're watching, James hopes they understand why he's saying this. It's mostly just wet. Wet, Vanity repeats in disgust, her face scrunching. James bobs his head. Pretty much. Trust me, you're not missing out on anything. What about love? Vanity says, blinking at him. James replies awkwardly. He briefly wonders how he ended up in this situation and imagines that Sirius must be in stitches right about now. Clearing his throat, he proceeds to lie like his life depends on it. You know, you're not missing anything there either. Vanity arches an eyebrow. That's bullshit. No, really, it's not even that great. James struggles not to cringe. This goes against everything he is as a person, but to comfort her, he will do what needs to be done. It's not like the books, you know? Most of the time, it's just pain. Pain, Vanity repeats, frowning. Yeah, James murmurs, his gaze trailing helplessly towards Regulus. A lump forms in his throat. Most of the time, it just hurts. When you think it can't hurt any more than it already does, it'll find new ways to hurt worse. So, why? Vanity mutters, sounding baffled, and she doesn't elaborate, but she doesn't have to. Why is everyone so obsessed with love? Why does everyone crave love? If it hurts so fucking much, why love at all? James stares like a lovesick idiot at Regulus ahead of him as he sighs and softly says, Well, that's the thing, Vanity. It's not exactly something you can escape. Once it's there, it takes a lot for it to leave, and sometimes it never does. Love's a lot like a disease that way. And sex? Vanity asks. What? James whips his head over to her, immediately startled out of his woes. Vanity raises her eyebrows. What about sex? And you're done, James declares, reaching out to bonk her gently on the top of her head with a flat part of his hatchet. No more questions out of you. Again, I'm 15, not 5, Vanity grumbles, swatting at his hand. I'm just saying no, James cuts in. Here, hold my hatchet. Feel cool. Ooh, look, something shiny. That's not... Vanity halts suddenly, distracted by something off to the side, for which James is grateful at first. But then she turns and wanders away. Vanity? Vanity! James hisses, tossing up his free hand before huffing and following after her. She's not going far, at least, just up to a tree a few feet away. When he catches up, she's crouching down in front of it. Hey, don't just wander off like that, yeah? We need to stay behind the others. Let's... Shut up, look at this, Vanity says excitedly, sounding thrilled in the only way she does about bugs. She lifts her hand to wave him over instantly. James, look! James clicks his tongue, but he moves over to crouch down beside her, blinking at the bug that's crawling slowly along the bark of the tree. It looks like some sort of bee, but really big. There's a bright bulb on the end of its body that shimmers in the pouch, like it would split out in a neon pool of green glitter if it was busted. Hallowmade, he's guessing. James tilts his head. What's that? Horcrux hornet. Vanity breathes out, giddy. She reaches out and clamps down on James's arm. Hallowmade. They're so cool, James. They're basically indestructible, and their venom replenishes at an unnaturally rapid rate. I have to get it. I feel like you do not have to do that, James says. An immortal bug sounds like bad news, Vanity. Oh yeah, it's lethal, Vanity agrees. One sting causes excruciating pain, but death comes quickly, less than a minute. Right, we're going, James announces, reaching for her arm. No, it's okay, Vanity protests eagerly. I promise, it's okay, James. Horcrux hornets only respond to fear. They won't attack unless you're scared. So, don't be scared, all right? They're harmless as long as you're not afraid, really. I just found out one sting will kill me. You could say I'm a bit scared, James mutters. Vanity huffs. Then back up. I've got this. She shakes her head and reaches out carefully, cupping her hand in front of the Horcrux hornet without hesitation. Imagine being a grown man afraid of bugs. You're embarrassing. You know what? James splutters, offended. First of all, being afraid of bugs that can kill you is perfectly valid. Second, why do you even want the damn thing? Because we can use its venom, obviously, Vanity murmurs, gently reaching out to nudge the bottom of the Horcrux hornet, encouraging it to crawl into her palm. They're really lazy creatures, don't like flying much because their wings are so sensitive that it hurts them every time they do it, but they will if they're trying to sting you. Fiendfire ants are their only predator. That's the one thing that can kill them, because they essentially burn up from the inside out if they're bitten by them. But anything else doesn't work. Cut them in half and they'll just grow back. Squash them and they'll just reform. It's fascinating, don't you think? James grimaces. Sure, fascinating. Are you afraid? I'll stay back if you're afraid, Vanity says as she slowly stands up, holding the Horcrux hornet to her chest like it's precious. I'm not afraid, James says. She arches an eyebrow at him, and he cracks a weak smile. I'm wary, mostly. Better to be safe than sorry, Vanity murmurs, holding her palm up. Oh, she looks tired. She must have flown recently. She? James asks. Vanity hums. Yeah, you can tell because her pouch is bigger. The males have smaller ones. What should I name her? Vanity, maybe you shouldn't. What about Vespa? A little on the nose, but Vespa? James asks. Because she's a hornet, Vanity says, looking up at him. When he continues to look confused, she rolls her eyes. I'm so disappointed right now. Vespa, James. It's a scientific name for hornets. How can you not know this? James opens his mouth, closes it, then shrugs helplessly and mumbles, Sorry? Vespa is a great name, really. Suits her. It does, doesn't it? Vanity agrees, giggling. She proceeds to lift her hand and gently dump the Vespa on her shoulder, looking pleased. There you go, darling. You right there, Vespa. Take a little nap. All right, James, let's go. Right, James mutters, shaking his head in a mixture of disbelief and wonder. Mere moments later, they're back on the path, catching up with the others. I want to tell Regulus about this, Vanity says, looking fucking ecstatic. I bet he'll be willing to dip his dagger in Vespa's venom. If it's ingested or hits the bloodstream, it's over. I know he won't be scared. I'm never living that down, am I? Never. James shakes his head with a small, fond smile as Vanity grins at him before rushing over to essentially shove Irene away from where she's holding onto the bridge so she can start chattering excitedly to Regulus, who blinks in surprise but nonetheless pays attention. Irene falls back with James. You let her get a bug? Irene asks flatly. A lethal bug? I did try to stop her, James admits warily. You know how she gets about bugs, Irene. It should be fine. I suppose as long as we don't get scared. Irene snorts. Oh, right, because we're not in an arena specifically driven to put us in terrifying situations or anything. None at all. James winces. You may have a point. How do we get it away from her? Don't be afraid of it. Failed step 1, Irene mutters. Can we kill it? It's basically indestructible, James says. Lovely. Irene heaves a sigh and crosses her arms, shaking her head slowly. Yeah, all right. Let's just hope for the best. Maybe you can convince Regulus to get it away from her later. He doesn't look afraid of it, and I do not want that thing in the cave with us tonight. It'll break her heart, but an unfortunate but necessary evil. James can't help but agree. One nightmare, and Vespa will be on the attack. I'll talk to Regulus, but I can't guarantee anything. He only does what he's willing to do. Irene hums, leaning over to bump their shoulders together with a playful smile. I don't know. I think if anyone has a chance of convincing him, it's you. You are severely misinformed, James says with a snort, and then he clears his throat. Irene? Yeah? I wanted to apologize if I hurt your feelings. In my interview, I didn't mean anything by it, you know? You're a lovely woman. Oh, that? Irene blinks at him, then chuckles, waving her hand like she's swatting a fly. No, you're fine. Don't think anything of it. I just wanted to fuck, really. James blinks. Oh. Well, you know, possible death and all that. Irene shrugs. I wanted to feel good before all of this, and you are a very, very beautiful man. I assumed we'd have fun together. I'm sure we would have, James teases, unable to help it, and Irene grins at him. Sorry you didn't get to have your fun. Are you joking? I absolutely had my fun, Irene informs him with a snort. She waggled her eyebrows at him. Let me tell you, Dylan and Peter are very thorough lovers. What? James gasps, eyes bulging. You and... Wait, did you... All of you at the... Irene's grin is downright filthy. Yeah, we did. All three at the same time. That's how I spent my last night. And I have no regrets. Shame about Dylan, you know? He was... Well, the fact that he was good in bed isn't as important as the fact that he was a good person, but he was good in bed. I have so many questions, James admits. How did the three of you even... Well, there are a lot of different positions if you... No, how did you three meet up? Oh, I snuck them into my suite, Irene says, waving her hand carelessly again. Matthias helped, because they're brilliant. They distracted Frank, our mentor. Suppose he's finding out now. She glances around with a grin. Sorry, Frank. Right, but you just decided to have sex? James asks, his eyebrows furrowed. Did it mean anything? No, of course not, Irene says. It was lovely, don't get me wrong, but it was more, well, it's just that we all knew we might die, so we might as well enjoy ourselves before, yeah? Sex doesn't have to mean anything, James, not for everyone. James feels his shoulders slump. Right. Oh, Irene breathes out, and her eyes are wide when he glances over at her. James, did you and Regulus have sex on your last night? What? No! James blurts out quickly, immediately getting anxious because it's not technically a lie. The parting gift took place the morning after, but it's close enough to one that he's absolutely freaking out already. No, of course not. Irene squints at him, looking bizarrely like she can see the inside of his brain. But you were with him the last night, yes? James scrambles for a way not to respond to this, trying to think up a proper lie, genuinely sweating at this point. It's too late, though. Irene's face clears, and she knows, so of course James immediately caves. It wasn't like that, all right? We just sort of slept together. Not sexually, obviously. We snuggled? Irene teases. A bit, James mumbles, ruffling his hair and feeling ridiculously flustered just from the memory. It's so different from holding Regulus every night here, because he knows that comes from a place of necessity. But that night, Regulus did that on his own, because he wanted to. Wow, Irene shakes her head. I genuinely can't even picture Regulus snuggling someone. James, you have to tell me and all the people at home. This is crucial information. Was he the big spoon or the little spoon? James tucks his lips in and mimes zipping them. Irene groans and nudges him playfully, and they both laugh as they sway back and forth. You're no fun. Stop fishing for details, James says. He'd hate me if I said anything. Well, he already hates me, but he'd hate me more. I don't think he hates you at all, Irene replies. James sighs. No, he does. I suppose it's not a secret now, really, but he definitely does. No, Irene says simply. I think he likes you, actually. In fact, I'm quite sure he fancies you just as much as you fancy him. Trust me, this isn't an unrequited love situation. No, but it is, though, James mumbles mournfully. Irene smiles at him. Really? Because he's looked back at us at least 5 times, and the poor thing is so jealous he can barely walk straight. I just know he's imagining slipping his dagger between my ribs right now. It's sort of funny, if I'm honest. What, really? James blurts out, his head snapping up to look at Regulus, who isn't looking back at all. He's in the middle of talking to Matthias. Irene, you lied. That's mean. Look at his hands, Irene whispers, moving closer and slipping her arm through James's. He's gripping the bridge so tight, it's like he's trying to break it. Wait for him to look back again, and watch how pissed he gets that I'm touching you. James can see that she's not lying about Regulus's hands. He's holding onto the bridge so hard that his knuckles are white, entirely bloodless. Still, I really don't think he cares. Fancy a wager? Irene asks. Terms? I bet Regulus will turn and see us like this, then call you to carry the bridge to keep you away from me. If he doesn't, I'll be the one to tell Vanity she has to get rid of Vespa. If he does, it's on you to break her heart. Oh, he's definitely not going to do that, James tells her with a snort. You're on. Irene chuckles and sort of snuggles closer to him, leaning her head over on his shoulder. We shall see. In the meantime, do you want to hear about how talented Peter's mouth is? You know, actually, I really do, James murmurs. It would keep me from worrying about him. Hey, Irene says softly, squeezing his arm. I'm worried too, but Peter is smart. He has a thirst to survive. He'll be fine. Yeah, but surviving is hard out there, James whispers. I know, Irene whispers back. They fall into heavy silence, strolling along together, and it's actually really nice to have her leaning against his side like this. Just a point of contact shared between friends. But that doesn't make it less comforting. James is much less touch-starved now. Okay, here it comes. Regulus is about to look. How can you tell? James asks, baffled. He's flexing his fingers, and it's been about 45 seconds since he looked the last time, Irene explained. James snorts. You timed him? What can I say? It's fun pissing him off. If he didn't dislike me so much, I would have tried to fuck him, too. You and him both. Oh, that would have been fun, Irene announces with a wistful sigh. Yeah, no, that would never have worked. Because he's jealous? Because I am, James corrects. Irene makes a quiet huh sound, like she's mildly surprised, but also not at the same time. You know, I can see that for you. Well, at least you're both well suited for one another. She hums and presses closer. Here it comes. Sure enough, Regulus glances back, just like Irene said he would. He's glaring, but he's always glaring, generally. James can't tell if he's jealous or not. Frankly, Regulus would have absolutely no reason to be jealous, because James genuinely forgets other people exist when he's around, honestly. James has spent the last 10 years rather stuck on him, so that's certainly not going to change now, and Regulus knows that, so there's no way he's— James, Regulus calls out, coming to a screeching halt so sharply that he actually yanks on the bridge and makes Matthias and Vanity stumble a bit. Stop fucking around. Swap. Now. Told you, Irene mutters under her breath. I'll be damned, James breathes out, astonished. Didn't I say? You did. You absolutely did. Never doubt me again. Right, but, I mean, maybe he's not jealous. Maybe— James, Regulus snaps. Irene stifles a laugh. Oh, he's seething with it. Just look at him. I almost feel bad for him. Almost. I bet if I kissed you on the cheek right now, his head would explode. I'm not taking that bet, James says. Because I'm right about him being jealous. Because I'm not risking his head exploding. I'm rather fond of his head being firmly attached to his body. If that's the case, you might want to go swap with him. I can practically see the steam coming out of his ears, Irene tells him, sounding thoroughly entertained. James clears his throat. Right, yeah, I'll just— Remember, you have to tell Vanity, Irene reminds him as he pulls away. That was the deal. Lovely, James mutters with a grimace, but he dutifully nods before he starts over to the bridge. Regulus doesn't even speak to him. He just continues to glare at him before snatching out his daggers and moving over to walk with Irene. James joins Vanity and Matthias in carrying the bridge. Every time he glances back, Regulus is flexing his fingers around the handles of his daggers, like he wants to use them, and Irene is grinning like she knows it. James huffs out an amazed laugh and keeps walking. Regulus isn't entirely sure the bridge is going to work. Not that it isn't well crafted, because it is. It's sturdy, despite the fact that it's not very wide, just enough for a single file line of people to walk across, and that's it. That's not the problem. The problem, Regulus fears, is that it might not be long enough. The river isn't too wide, just about the length of 3 grown men lying down, stacked head to feet. That alone is going to make the bridge difficult to get over the water, but if it falls short, then all of this is for nothing, and Peter is out there risking his life for no reason. When they get to the field they all started in 5 days ago, Regulus knows they're a little behind the schedule. Peter's already lit the first fire, the smoke from it visible in the sky. The second isn't going yet, so they're not too far behind, but it definitely makes them pick up the pace. "All right, we have to do this carefully," Matthias says when they reach the edge of the river. They've stood up the bridge with James on the other side, holding it in place. It's quite tall, which is promising. "James, we're going to lower it slowly, as far as we can get. Don't drop it, or the ramp on the other side might break. Ready?" "Ready," James assures them, nodding. "Steady now," Matthias murmurs, grunting as they begin to let it slowly sink through the air. It's a bit of an awkward process, like tipping over something very tall and trying to ensure it falls in slow motion. It involves a lot of balance and strength, but it's a 2-person job, so no one can help them. Regulus can only stand back and stare at the veins on James's forearms, lightly covered in dark hair, and the bulging muscle from where he's straining. Why did he roll his sleeves up? Roll them down, for fuck's sake! Regulus thinks almost desperately, unable to rip his gaze away. There's one moment where it seems like the bridge isn't going to make it all the way across, but then Matthias and James lift and push, and the bridge hits with a quiet thud. It rattles a bit, but it's there. Just like that. Raised up above the water, a clear platform for them to walk across. No hands lift from the Crimson River, but they all seem to be waiting for it. Nothing happens. "Brilliant," James declares cheerfully. "We still have to get across," Matthias points out. They take a deep breath and set their shoulders. "Right. Well, this was my idea, so I'll go first." "Matthias," Irene says warily, stepping forward. "Why don't I go first, yeah? Just let me." Matthias gives her a tiny smile, then shakes their head. "It's fine, Irene. I believe in my bridge. Wait for me to get all the way across before you follow, and come one at a time. No need to test weight restrictions. Vanity after me, if that works." With that, Matthias turns and proceeds to start up the bridge, one careful step after the other. They're brave, that much is obvious, because they don't falter even on the way over the water. Everyone seems to hold their breath, but no pale hands rise up, and Matthias makes it safely across. Regulus is inordinately relieved that it worked. "All right, Vanity," Irene murmurs, waving her over. "Careful now. Don't look down, and don't stop." Vanity reaches up to gently cradle Vespa, then starts her way across the well. She's brave, too, and she must not feel an ounce of fear because Vespa doesn't sting her. She makes it across and whips around to grin at them, clearly pleased. She high-fives Matthias, who is also visibly pleased. "Come on, Irene," Matthias calls. "Time to see how the other side lives," Irene teases, then salutes James and Regulus with a wink before making her way over without so much as a stutter. "Your turn," James says. Regulus shoots him a look, but James just smiles at him. It's a sweet, boyish smile that makes Regulus want to put his hand to James's cheek and turn his face firmly away. With a huff, Regulus whips around and makes his way over the bridge next. It's structurally sound, at least, and it only rattles a little. He makes it over safely. Scowling, Regulus turns and waits impatiently for James to follow. As always, he does. The moment he's safely on the ground, Regulus turns around and starts for the cave. The Death Eaters have definitely changed things. As Regulus predicted, they do have all the supplies and food set up in a corner for easy access, kept out in the open rather arrogantly. In fairness, it's not as if anyone could get to it during the day, and they're always guarding it at night, so no one could really come and take it, so they thought. Their mistake is why they're being pillaged. Fucking idiots. The weapons are mostly in the same place, though. It's clear that the Death Eaters picked over them, because most of them were strewn all over the place or left on tables. Matthias immediately goes for the crossbow, and Irene has a sword in hand in seconds. Vanity bypasses all of that to go to the supplies, sorting through it until she lets out a sound of delight as she holds up what appears to be a pair of tweezers and a small, empty glass vial. James goes over to join her, grabbing a bag to start filling with various things. Regulus does the same, uncomfortably aware of the fact that Irene and Matthias are still sifting through the weapons. He keeps a dagger in hand, just in case. "What weapon do you think Peter will want?" Irene asks thoughtfully. "We've got a spear, a mace, and another sword." "Spear," James replies. "It gives him a bit of long range, but he can still use it close range, and if he needs to, he can throw it." Regulus squeezes his eyes shut, but that doesn't drown out the sight of Quinn's spear in Evan's stomach, behind his eyelids. He takes a quiet, shaky breath and swallows down the lump in his throat, blinking hard and fast. "Hey, Regulus," Vanity whispers, moving closer to him with a hopeful look in her eyes. "Can you help me?" "With what?" Regulus murmurs. Vanity proceeds to hold up Vespa, where she has her clamped in between the pair of tweezers. "I need you to cut her." Regulus blinks. "Cut Vespa?" "Yes, please," Vanity says. "It's okay, it won't hurt her. You see her pouch here, with the green stuff in it? That's her venom. She has no nerves in her pouch, so she won't feel a thing." "Won't she get upset?" "No, she won't care as long as you're not scared." "I mean, sure," Regulus says slowly, eyebrows furrowed. Vanity beams at him, pleased, so he just goes with it. He knows she would never do anything to unnecessarily harm any bug, let alone the Horcrux hornet she's clearly made her pet. "Right. It doesn't need to be a big cut, just a little one. Right on her pouch. Go on," Vanity instructs, holding Vespa up. Regulus frowns, but he moves forward and carefully pushes the tip of his dagger into the glowing green pouch until it punctures through. He waits for something to happen, but Vespa shows no sign of agitation. Vanity releases a quiet squeal of delight and hovers Vespa over the vial. Gently, she squeezes the tweezers, and the venom slowly seeps out of the small cut and drips into the vial. Regulus peeks at his dagger, curious, but none of the venom gets on it like this. "It's not a lot," Regulus comments, helplessly curious and a bit fascinated by the whole thing himself, honestly. "The venom only fills the vial a quarter of the way." "Yeah, I know, but watch," Vanity breathes out, so Regulus does watch. Vespa's pouch proceeds to knit back together, and more venom fills it in seconds. Again, Vanity squeals and bounces in place, grinning at him. "How cool is that?" "Very," Regulus says, and he's not even lying. "Do it again," Vanity encourages. "I want to fill the vial." Regulus pauses, then shrugs. He does it again, faintly amused by how excited Vanity gets about it every time. It reminds him of himself the first time Sirius made him a dagger. When they were alone, Regulus didn't mind sharing how excited he was about anything, not at that age. He hasn't had such childish excitement since he was Vanity's age. It makes something tender flare in his chest for her. They repeat the process 2 more times before the vial is nearly full. Vespa remains completely unbothered throughout the whole ordeal, and Vanity occasionally informs her that she's doing so well. Regulus's lips curl up against his will. "Oh, what the fuck?" James blurts out when he wanders over to see what they're up to. He sounds appalled. "Why are we stabbing Vespa? Can we stop stabbing Vespa?" "If you're going to be a big baby about it, you can go," Vanity declares with no small amount of sass. Regulus hums, glancing up at James with a smile. "Yeah, if you're going to be a big baby about it, James, you can go." James purses his lips, putting his hands on his hip as he squints between them. "See, no, I don't like that at all. A few conversations with Regulus and you're getting mean, Vanity. He's a bad influence. Don't listen to him. Stay sweet." "I'm only sweet when it suits me," Vanity says dismissively. "Smart girl," Regulus praises, and Vanity flashes him a grin. James bites his lip, clearly struggling not to smile, And his eyes are so soft. He clears his throat. No, really, can someone explain why Vespa is being stabbed and why she's just fine with that? She's not even twitching. She doesn't know what's happening, Vanity explains with a long, suffering sigh. Like, she's so exhausted being surrounded by people who don't know about bugs the way she does. All we're doing is taking her venom. It doesn't hurt her. So you are dipping your dagger in the venom? James asks, glancing at Regulus with a small frown. Snorting, Vanity shakes her head before Regulus can even respond. No, not at all. Vespa's pouch is too thick for that to work like this, and he's not pushing in far enough. It's fine. We'll do that later when we have more time. Vanity, what weapon do you want? Matthias calls out. I have my weapon right here, Vanity calls back. Vespa is my weapon, and she's all I need. James, Irene says firmly. Blowing out a deep breath, James focuses on Vanity, who looks up at him with a frown. Vanity, I'm sorry, I really am, but you can't keep Vespa. You need to get rid of her. I won't, Vanity protests, her eyes narrowing. She gently places Vespa in her palm and sits the tweezers down so she can close the vial, keeping it in her hand. You have to, James tells her apologetically. She's far too dangerous to keep around, and we can't bring her back to the cave with us. There's too much fear in this arena, and any of us could get hurt. Vanity looks ready for mutiny. We need her venom, though. We really don't, James says softly. No one deserves to die in excruciating pain, no matter how quick it is. At that, Vanity deflates a little bit. She looks at Vespa with very sad eyes, like she might start crying. Regulus frowns, then frowns right at James, genuinely unhappy with him at the moment. He softens, though, because James looks like he might cry right along with Vanity. She's utterly crushed, because he's right, and he's crushed right along with her. You can keep the venom you collected, James offers weakly, his eyebrows furrowed. That way you can always have a bit of Vespa with you. I know it's not the same, but... Can I just keep her for a bit longer? Vanity asks, looking up at him with wide, watery eyes. No one is afraid of her now. I'll just leave her behind when we go. Maybe she'll handle the Death Eaters. You never know. James immediately gives in, because his spine is the consistency of a roasted marshmallow. Yeah, that's fine. Keep her for now, but when we go, she stays behind. Deal? Fine, Vanity mumbles, heaving a sigh as she gently puts Vespa on her shoulder. With that, she turns and marches off, clearly not pleased at the moment. Oh, she hates me, James says sadly. She's not the only one, Regulus replies, and he immediately regrets it when James looks even closer to tears than he did before. Stop it, she doesn't hate you. She may hate that you were right, but you were right. You did the right thing. Yeah, but she's mad at me, James mumbles. Regulus rolls his eyes. She's 15. She'll get over it. You didn't, James says. That was different. How? You weren't her first crush, Regulus tells him, hating the way the words fit in his mouth. Crush. So inadequate for what it really was, even so young. He knows what it really was, but he hates the truth even more. That complicates things a bit. James looks him up and down, slowly. Then he says, Yeah, clearly. I'm back to thinking you have unresolved feelings. Ah, more delusion, Regulus says flatly. You're obsessed with being mean to me, James declares, like this is a major selling point in his favor. Reparations, Regulus flicks his fingers, nothing more. Reparations, James chokes out, laughing. For what, Reg? Because I teased you a little when we were kids? Because you stole my brother from me, Regulus thinks, but he doesn't say it. Because you made my heart flutter, and you're doing it again, and I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, he thinks, but he doesn't say that either. Because it's easier. You're going to die, and it's easier, he thinks, and he'll never say that to anyone. He barely lets himself think it, slamming the thought down under lock and key, and ignoring the rattle that begs him to open it and explore it further. No, there's no point. Reparations for having to be around you, Regulus says instead, which sums up all of that, sort of. Ah, you'd miss me if I wasn't around, James teases, and then his smile falters. Just for a moment, just a flicker in his expression. Regulus can't fathom the change, or why it's there, but James smiles again anyway. Like it never even happened at all. Well, the joke is on you, love. Negging is wrong and bad and shouldn't work. But when you do it, James makes a silly sound, like he's tasting something exquisite, and he kisses his fingers, which makes Regulus roll his eyes as he mutters, "You're pathetic." "See? Like that. Fuck, it gets me every time," James says with a theatrical shiver. "Oh, yes, please insult me more. You have me absolutely hooked." "I wish that was sarcasm," Regulus tells him, like genuinely, "but you're not joking. Where is your self-respect?" "Wherever you want it to be," James replies. "I am but a man lost to the charm of Regulus Black." Regulus snorts. "You do not find me charming. I'm the least charming person on the planet." "We're going to have to agree to disagree on that," James informs him, stepping closer and leaning his hand on the table of supplies so he can sway closer, smiling that smile of his, the one that's hard to look at. "I do wonder sometimes what it would be like for you to be nice. Sincerely nice, I mean. What if I didn't like it? Would that mean I have issues?" "You have issues regardless," Regulus says. James grins. "Yeah, that never gets old. You don't even know how to be nice to me, do you? You're so funny, James. Funny and kind and handsome and just absolute best all the time. You brighten every room you walk into, but that makes sense because you're the sun," Regulus declares in an overly peppy voice, folding his hands together and tucking them under his chin as he smiles sweetly and bats his eyelashes. "Fuck you, that was awful," James wheezes, shaking with laughter as he shuffles forward, clearly entertained. "You're not even trying, Reg." Regulus lets his expression drop and his hands fall as he rolls his eyes. "That's what you get for fishing for compliments. If you think I'm going to stroke your ego, you're a fool." "Well, if you won't stroke my ego," James teases, "you could always stroke my—" "I will give you the Vespa treatment, James," Regulus cuts in, reaching forward to press the tip of his dagger to the soft give of James's stomach. "How's that saying go? No pain, no gain?" James raises his eyebrows and steps forward into the blade, forcing Regulus to draw back a bit so he won't actually stab him. The fact that James just trusts him to do that is infuriating, only more so because Regulus instinctively does it. "You're always so much sweeter when I've been hurt." "Well, I'm not a monster," Regulus mutters under his breath, abruptly turning away to grab the bag and busy his hands. James is so close, and Regulus suddenly feels like he's 14 again, which is not a sensation he's pleased with. "Yeah, moving on. Don't stand around doing nothing. We're on a bit of a time limit here, remember?" "Hey, the second fire is burning," Vanity calls from the mouth of the cave, drawing their attention. "Chop chop, people," Irene announces. "We're leaving as soon as the smoke from the third hits the sky." Regulus gives James a pointed look. "You heard her. Get to it." "Wouldn't want to disappoint Irene now, would you?" James breaks out into a grin, which instantly gets under Regulus's skin, but he doesn't say anything. James just releases a huff of laughter, soft and exhilarated, and he grabs his own bag to start gathering supplies. He leans over to press their shoulders together, and Regulus wishes with everything in him that he had the power to pull away. He doesn't.